dusk, its ash-grey blossom shaves on violet skies, o'er twilight mountains where the horse song sighs, rises and falls, and fades away from earth to earth. Earth renews the music sweeter. Oh, come there. Come, Macushla, come, as in ancient times.
Can you hear me without the mic, or do you need the mic? Okay. So I'll just tell you a wee bit about sort of the genealogy of the whole thing. So it was A's 50th anniversary back in 2017. So prior to that, I knew very little, like most people, I knew very little about A. George William Russell. There was a blue plaque in Lurgan, and I thought he was just a local vernacular poet or something like that. Knew nothing about him. And I had been actually looking for Quiet Man, a big fan of the Quiet Man. I was looking for their sites, and I came across Cool Park. And when I went to Cool Park there, that was Lady Gregory's home, and she was the sort of the money person behind the whole literary revival. And certainly she was the bank of W.B. Yeats. So anyway, so I went into Cool Park and just sort of said to the woman, you know, I'm only here for the signature tree. So Cool Park is a tree there, it has all the good Irish writers have signed it. And for some reason, and to this day I don't know, I just said to her, have you ever heard of A. Russell? And she looked at me as if I was silly and stupid. And I was silly and stupid. As I said, I thought he was some sort of even actor. And then it's triggered me, this man's a lot more important than I first thought. When I went in, the signature was on the tree. And when I came back, she sent me up to a wee museum they had there. And she says, you want to know about you go up to the museum? And I said, I'm a little bit worried. She says, no, tell you need to go up. And I went up. And there was Lady Gregory's fan. And wherever Lady Gregory went, she got the fan signed by the most important people in the world. And when I looked on it, there was Roosevelt above A.E. and below was W.B. Yeats. You know, there was a few odd names there, but I never even took much notice. Once I seen that, I said, wow, this is some guy, like, you know, didn't know about him. So when I done a bit more research into it, found that it was his 50th anniversary coming up, and then I went about sort of annoying people, torturing people until we got the very first A. Russell Festival. And then so we've had one ever since, you know, during COVID obviously, one of them was a virtual one, you know, did online. So that's the sort of history of how it came about. And since that, we've now got international and national chair people, so we've an element there which is reaching out all over the world, hopefully, and hopefully we're going for that. So thanks very much for everybody for coming. I must say the bus tour has been cancelled, by the way. We didn't get the funding for the bus tour, even though it's in the brochure. ABC Council didn't give us the money for it. So thanks very much.
So we have the voice of AE himself who will launch our festival. So Ziggy has this great recording of AE reciting in his own unique style a poem titled Carol Moore. So let me just...
So if you listen to the accent, the accent actually, Lurgan has sort of, a lot of people from Belfast came to live in Craigavon. Craigavon was formed 50 years ago. So the Lurgan accent has sort of changed a bit. It's got to be a bit more like Belfast. But he talks exactly like my granny spoke. You know, I can hear there's a wee lilt at the end of it. Exactly like my granny. So he has kept his Lurgan accent right through his whole life. So you can just hear that wee lilt at the end of it. It's almost like a Fermanagh, but that's the way that people in Lurgan spoke back in the 80s.
My name is George Russell, though I have always published my poems under the pseudonym of A.E. This poem, which I am going to repeat to you, I call The Gates of the Mountain. It was written by me after speaking to a small farmer in the west of Ireland, who told me of a vision he had of Queen Maeve, the queen of the western host of Faery, and it moved me so much that this small farmer should have seen the things that kings and princes desire to see, that I went away and wrote this poem. It's a lonely road through bogland to the lake at Carramore, and a sleeper there lies dreaming where the waters lap the shore. Though the moth wings of the twilight in their purples are unfurled, yet a sleep is filled with music by the masters of the world. There's a hand as white as silver that is fondling with his hair. There are glimmering feet of sunshine that are dancing by him there, and half-open lips of fairy that were dyed a fairy red in the revels where the hazel tree its holy cluster shed. Come away, the red lips whisper, all the world is weary now. 'Tis the twilight of the ages, and it's time to quit the plough. Oh, the very sunlight's weary ere it lightens up the dew, and its gold is changed and faded before it falls to you. Though your calling's heart be tender, a tenderer heart is near. What's the starlight in our glances when the stars are shining clear? Who would kiss the fading shadow when the flower face glows above? 'Tis the beauty of all beauty that is calling for your love. Oh, the great gates of the mountain have opened once again, and the sound of song and dancing falls upon the ears of men, and the land of youth lies gleaming, flushed with rainbow light and mirth, and the old enchantment lingers in the honey heart of earth.
So yeah, that was amazing. So I've given you a brief overview of what's happening today, but I think what I'd like to do is maybe ask some of the panellists, what their highlight of the festival is, because it's a very packed programme, very varied. There are a few events that are becoming like repeat events, part of the annual festival, like the Open Mic Night, which was on last night in the Vintage Bar. We'll have the parade on Fun Day, which is a massive part of the festival on in Lurgan, of course, tomorrow. We've got AAE's birthday bash on Wednesday, and we've got, of course, Jimmy's Brilliant Walking Tours, which are part of the festival as well. And, I just wanted to ask, Réamonn, what about you? What have been the highlights of the festival for you?
I think that for me, talk interview after this is definitely one of the highlights, because I was lucky enough to be here last year when Laura spoke about Simone Thierry, and what she said about the man of the moment, A.E. Russell, has stayed with me. You know, no matter what your want is, make your way to A.E. Russell. And Laura will be interviewed by Patrick O'Donnell here, an expert on A.E. Russell, among many other things. So that's going to be a highlight for sure for me for this year's festival. And also, I'm keen to hear what James North has to say about A.E. Russell and how he plugged into the wisdom and power of H.B. Blavatsky, as did many others. And we met Blavatsky possibly in London, even when she was over here. So I imagine James North is going to be revealing a lot about A.E.'s occult. And when I was growing up, occult equaled devil worship. I've come to know that occult is the things that are worth knowing, you know, to a large degree. So I'll be looking forward. They're my two highlights.
Well, I'm very blessed that a friend of ours that we made in Donegal, Dr. Brian Lacey, who's an expert on archaeology, he'll be joining us on Sunday. Give a talk on Lugh, this kind of the solar warrior figure, and the sacred mountains of Donegal. So one of the themes of the festival is the sacred mountain. For A.E. Slieve Gullion in South Armagh was a sacred mountain. And we're not in competition with W.B. Yeats. Yeats, of course, is down Bulbin in Sligo. We have here in Armagh Slieve Gullion as our sacred mountain. So on Sunday, we'll be in South Armagh, T. Cullen, and we'll do a hike up Slieve Gullion to recreate a hike and bicycle tour that A.E. performed in 1901 with his great friend, the novelist George Moore, in search and quest for Finn McCool by the lake at the top of Slieve Gullion. And that will be part of the talk that happens immediately after this. So Dr. Brian Lacey on Sunday, if you're able to come down to South Armagh, T. Cullen, that will be a highlight. And then another friend of ours, Fergal O'Brien, who's been over to Minnesota to visit us with a team here from Armagh. We'll be interviewing Finbar McGee, who's written a completely new song, the A.E. Russell from Lurgan Town, which encapsulates the entire career of A.E. in a fantastic new form, and that will be an interview with Breege and Finbar and Fergal, and then it'll be kind of a musical journey through their career, culminating in a world premiere. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is expand A.E. into the landscape of Armagh, South Armagh, into the mountains, and into the mythology and the symbolism and kind of the deep cultural energy that he was part of as the luminous center of the Irish literary revival. And so we're expanding the festival to have a sense of creativity, having these different levels and layers. So those are my two highlights, I would say.
How about Jimmy then? Any highlights for you?
Yeah, well, all of the above. But on Monday night, there's going to be a wonderful talk on a lady called Ali Young, a 3-1 for ladies at the end of the talk. Dorothy McDowell, Linda Rosewood. Linda Rosewood is from California. Of course, one thing about it was the people he influenced, you know, and Ali Young was one of those. Ali Young took part in the 1960 Rising. I think she left Ireland, but disappointed about partition, and she went to America, and she believed she was a Druid. And she lived as a Druid on the beaches of California. She became professor of Irish Studies in California,
And a lot of people started to follow her, you know, on beaches of California. And really that was the infancy of the hippie movement. And she was very famously preserved in the redwood forest, and any money that if you buy any of her books or anything, money goes to preservation of the redwood forest. So that'll be a fascinating talk. And then Jonathan Hagen and an illustrator like myself, Sean Fitzgerald, they're going to talk about the influences of AE on art and illustrations and things like that. So those are the ones I'm looking forward to as well.
Can I just? Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to Flash Fiction tonight. It's a fantastic theme, and Biddy and her Flash Fictioners always gather together a wonderful bunch of performers and individuals in the audience. So that's going to be a highlight for sure, as it was last year.
Yeah, can't wait. For me, when I was South Armagh native, like Réamonn, and so I'm really looking forward to Sunday's hike up Slieve Bullion, the Mystic and the Mountain guided hike. So I've climbed Slieve Bullion many times, but probably before I realised that was a place of pilgrimage for George Russell, and he visited there with George Moore. So I'm really looking forward to going there and retracing Russell's steps up Slieve Bullion and to see what he saw through new eyes. Also then on Sunday in T. Collin we've got Aonach Mhacha, who's doing a talk about the Gaelic poets of South Armagh. So I know if any of you've been to see Aonach Mhacha before, she's a wealth of knowledge. She knows everything about South Armagh and beyond. So she's a real history enthusiast. She just talks about the Gaelic poets, about townlands. So she's kind of tailored a little talk for us in T. Collin. So yeah, I can't wait to hear that one. So just moving on, we're going to move on to our panel discussion. So the theme is AE and Sacred Mountains. So the panellists here, they've been reflecting on that theme and AE and his appreciation of the landscape of Ireland, and particularly of South Armagh and Slieve Bullion. So I'm going to go to Réamonn. So I'm going to give Réamonn a bit of an introduction, though you probably already know him. So Réamonn is the CEO of Gael Inn, and he's also one of the founders of this lovely organisation, Aonach Mhacha. He's a Gaelic scholar, and he is an expert on mythology. He's written 3 books on Cú Chulainn, and also, like I said, he's a South Armagh native and has a love for the local landscape. So he's got many connections with AE there. So what were your thoughts then on the topic then? What would you like to talk about? Réamonn?
Everything. I'll try and keep this as focused as possible, but I don't think AE would be overly concerned if he didn't bring in strands from a whole variety of areas that he amazingly involved himself in. But just when you were given that introduction, I have done a fair bit of study, and I'll always go back to not what was on the curriculum I studied at university, at postgraduate level, but to a fortnight when my Irish teacher, Hugh Murphy from the Slade, also perched on the side of Slieve Bullion Mountain, and he took the boys, me being one of them, for a fortnight through our folklore, our mythology, and the history of our language and our people, with a heavy emphasis on the we people. And the only rule for that fortnight is that you weren't allowed to lift a pen or a pencil. You sat back and listened, and that fortnight inspired and informed almost everything that I've done since, rather than, what I was supposed to be learning, the part of the curriculum. And, AE, yes, he certainly was on Slieve Gullion because he told us that he went there with others. And Slieve Gullion is a very special, mystic mountain, the highest in Armagh, and it has that burial cairn on the top, which seems to be aligned with the winter solstice in the evening as the sun goes down. And it doesn't really surprise me that A.E. Russell made his way to Slieve Gullion. Slieve Gullion was a place of social pilgrimage for people around Crossmaglen where I grew up. It seemed to represent an escape from the Troubles. In fact, I can remember being up there and seeing the helicopters down below me, which was, it gives you an indication of being removed from reality, which could have been pretty harsh at times. And A.E., we know, appreciated mountains, and mountains are universally appreciated across the world. We have Buddhist temples built on the top of mountains. Even the twin spires of Armagh Cathedral are pointing up towards where we assume it all stemmed from. And like that, just physically being up high gives us a sense of elation. And A.E. also tells us that the Standish O'Grady trilogy, based on Cuchulainn, not based on Cuchulainn, entitled Cuchulainn and the various stages of his emergence as Ulster's greatest hero. I would argue Ireland's greatest hero. We've now finally got a bank holiday for St. Bridget. That was St. Bridget. That was much needed, and we need to represent. We need something to place Cuchulainn as the national hero. But sadly, that isn't the case at the moment because it's our own mythology, and that's not really. That's there with silly fairy tales, even though we know that fairy tales aren't silly, but not as important as Greek mythology or Roman, not as important as the classics. So when A.E. Russell got his hands on the Cuchulainn trilogy by Standish O'Grady, it seems to have kicked open many, many doors in his mind, and he believed that Cuchulainn was a representation of everything that is great and noble from our past, and also informing our future. And importantly, on Cuchulainn, every time that our nation is in trouble, they seem to revert to awakening the spirit of Cuchulainn. And that happened for the literary revival. It happened in 1916. In fact, W.B. Yeats tells us that Cuchulainn was an additional fighter in the corridors of the GPO, and Pearse summoned him to his side. Cuchulainn was also another member of staff in Scoil Éanna, St. Enda's, which Pearse set up And when the time came out by Thomas Kinsella, it was around the time of the civil rights emerging and the trouble that rightly caused, and what happened afterwards. But also the spirit of Cuchulainn can be called by any one of us in sporting endeavours, poetry, the arts, and in your own personal life, as can the spirit of A.E. Russell.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much. So moving on to Jimmy then. So everyone knows Jimmy, but Jimmy's the chairman of the A.E. Russell Society. He's a local historian and folklorist and a professional tour guide. So as I mentioned, he does the A.E. Heritage Tour of Lurgan, and also he's an expert on the mythology of Loughnashade. He does the Druids Walk there as well. So Jimmy, you want to focus on the Cailleach, is that right?
Well, I'll say this. It was just interesting what you're saying because it ties in really well. I was going to talk about a lot of this stuff. But Rory McIlroy there, he was being interviewed last night, I think it was yesterday, and he said his problem why he never won the Masters was that he can't play boring golf. And if you think of that spirit of the Irish rugby team is the same, or the sports teams, our national sports are the same. Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe they're a bit boring, but our teams can't do, and our spirit, the Irish spirit, wherever it goes in the world, suppose you could call people call us mad. There's a bit of that madness in it, but we're not boring, that's the thing. We don't do boring things, and that's why McIlroy reckons he can't never win the Masters. And but anyway, this is the first edition of Hail for Well, George Muir, and this is where we'll find out about A.E.'s pilgrimage in Slieve Gullion. A lot of it is in there. George Muir, I have to say, he said very unkindly things about most people around him at the time. The only person that he seemed to be very fond of was A.E. He never said anything bad about A.E. really. So a lot of stuff in there. He wrote about two of them go on this pilgrimage. They were at Newgrange first, maybe a few other places as well, and then they end up at Slieve Gullion. And George Muir wasn't really fit enough to go up the mountain anyway, so he gave up halfway up, but A.E. went away on it and met the gods up there at the top of Slieve Gullion. But George Muir wrote about it and just said, he says, "We have remained in the valley of the senses, our weak flesh had kept us there, but A.E. had ascended the mountain of the spirit, and the divine light was about him. It is the mission of some men to enable their fellows to live beyond themselves. A.E. possesses this power in an extraordinary degree, and we were lifted above ourselves." That's what George Muir believed. A.E. had this magic about him, and everybody that ever met him, you've got this feeling. You were talking about the little people, the spirits sort of emerged in the company of A.E. Arnold Bach's a great composer. He wrote his fourth symphony after being standing beside A.E. and hearing the spirits, lots of stories about these spirits emerged in the company of A.E. Russell. But anyway, so keeping a bit linguistic here, the A.E. I.U. So these theosophists or esoteric people believe that the vowels were the voices of the gods. So those early vowels were like that. So I was thinking about really the Cailleach. It's the Cailleach's word. That's her house up the right top of it. That's what the Cailleach lives. And in our mythologies, the Cailleach represents the dark side of the year, while Bridget represents the light side of the year. But as A would point out, you can't have light unless you have darkness. Light comes out of darkness. So we do need the Cailleach. But anyway, so the crow, we're thinking about this name, Cailleach. And the crow, it makes a funny noise. It goes ka, ka, ka. So if we think about that sound, ka, we have another member of our organisation called Pearl Finn, who is an expert in sort of the esoteric, that mystic part of AE. And she's a genuine mystic herself. She has spent a lot of time in India. And this is what she said. She said, in my study of Sanskrit, sound, Indian language, I've learned that the first syllable in a word is a powerful sacred expression which sets the intentions for the word, whether it is a name, a place, or a thing. When we make a sound, we are activating an intentional energy for what we would like to make happen or experience. The first syllable in Gaelic is ka, which in Gaelic is the sound for questioning words, i.e., what, how, why, where. This ka sounds like ka, which is the first syllable in kala, which means 10. They were going back to the verdict, or maybe 2,000 years BC, this language is coming from. So we have karma, which indicates the soul work we are here to do. These are both deep subjects which influence our experiences. The following are a few places where we hear this sound ka in Gaelic: cower, help, canch, speak. And in English we have calendar, calculate, and cater. This short piece of information tells us why the Gaelic was given such a derogatory reputation. The role she played in creating a place where people could go for help, guidance, based on wisdom gained from having knowledge on how to calculate a calendar. Her skills could guide people on how best to use their precious time. And then she goes on to say that institutionalised Christianity, and this is rooted in back way of Europe, decided that us ordinary people would not be able to understand what was best for us. And so they insisted that we pay for the privilege of guidance. However, we Gaels refused because we had our own channel, and I think this word is Gaelshire, is that right? Gaelshire? No? Kaisher. Hence the continuous punishment we have been subjected to. So in the Sanskrit, we have the word Kali, which is really the same thing as Kali, and it marks time. A wrote at the dawn of the Kalyanka. The Kalyanka and the Kalyak is the same basically thing. At the dawn of the Kalyanka, where we sat on the hillside together that evening, the winds were low and the air was misty. It was like the huge sun-browned slope on which we were sitting was sprinkled over with rare spokes of grass. It ran down into the vagueness underneath, where dimly the village could be seen, veiled by its traces of lazy smoke. Beyond was a bluer shade, a deeper depth, of which mountain beyond mountain, the sacred heights of Himalaya rose up through star-sprinkled zones of silver, sapphire. How gay were our hearts, the silent joy of the earth quickened their beating, but fairy fancies alternating with the sweetest laughter came from child's lips. And thus the golden age whispered her last and departed. Up came the white moon, her rays of dusty pearl, slanting across the darkness from the old mountain to our feet. A bridge, we cried, Prima Vita, who longed to be a skywalker, here is a bridge for you. So this Kalyanka goes back, in that sort of belief system, thousands of years BC, and we have this word on the top of the mountain. So we weren't detached from the rest of the world in those times. There's a lot of connection between the Eastern countries and ourselves. So,
Brilliant, thank you. And finally, I'm going to turn to Patrick. So Patrick is Professor of English at Normandian College in Minnesota. He's a Dublin native though. He's also the Director of Education at Centre in Minnesota. Irish Studies writer and editor, and he's also a literary historian. So I'm hoping that Patrick will bring some of his literary expertise to the topic.
Sure, thank you, Marianne. So I'll just speak very briefly because we have the next talk ready to begin, which is on the Seeking the Summit, AE, C. Monterey, and George Moore. So just briefly, AE is the luminous centre of the Irish Literary Revival. We can see Lady Gregory and W.B. Yeats. But AE is sort of universally recounted as sort of a spiritual battery, a sort of a luminous kind of benign goodness that no matter who he's talking with, he brings out the best. So he is what we would consider the sage of the Irish literary revival. So in the psychology of Carl Jung, he talks about the ego and the self. The self is the deeper, mature, spiritual side of our psyche. And AE seems to activate the sage in other people, and he has activated the sage in himself. Now, he's done so because he's studied meditation, concentration, visualization, through studying the great classics of Eastern wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and figuring out ways to kind of go deeper into what the yoga philosophers call witness consciousness. So AE comes to his Celtic Irish side after 12 years of mystical study from about 1885 to 1897. So when he gets involved in the Irish literary renaissance in the late 1890s with Yeats and with his studies of Irish myth, he's fusing a kind of an Eastern wisdom, a sense of a kind of a Hindu esotericism with Celtic mythological references such as Réamonn and Jim have been referencing the Cuchulainn. So you get a sense of a kind of a Celtic yogi here, and that's his benign impact across the revival. The most difficult person you could try to be friends with, arguably, at this time was George Moore, a brilliant prose artist, but a very disagreeable, very contradictory kind of character. And I'll just end on this because it's kind of sort of transitioning into the talk with Laura. When George Moore moved to Dublin, after being in Paris in the 1870s and then in London in the 1880s, he comes into the Irish Revival in the 1890s, he moves to Dublin in 1901. He's there for 10 years. His friendship with AE is what allows him to make his contribution to the revival. And I'll just stop there because it's kind of segueing into the next section. So thank you, Marianne.
In a few minutes, we're going to move on to the next talk with Laura and Patrick. But I'd just like to take the opportunity first to mention the AE George Russell Society, which formed in Dublin. This is the AE Russell Festival Society, isn't that right?
Yep.
Got the name right? Yeah. So, but which is mainly based in Lurgan and Armagh. But the AE George Russell Society, it formed in Dublin just in October last year in the United Arts Club. And so we've got a few committee members. Actually, all of the top table here, we're all committee members. We've also got Bridget, who's secretary, and we've got Turlough Dennehan, who's come up as well, and Bernadette Lowry. Yeah, so we've got a few committee members here. So the origins of that inaugural event happened many years before. You may know John Donoghue, who's a real AE enthusiast and a major collector of AE's work. So he had really done the groundwork and drumming up interest in George Russell. Same as the guys up here, and Jimmy and Michael, they've had the festivals over the years, making the connections, finding new connections with people all over Ireland and beyond Ireland. We found a great bunch of people in Donegal and Dunfanaghy and Marble Hill and in Glenveigh Castle in particular. So, AE has made its mark in lots of places all around Ireland. So there was clearly an interest there. There was the enthusiasm was there. So it was time to set up a society, a national society. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic put an end to John's plans. So eventually, 2023, we got organised. We had the inaugural event in Dublin, and we set up membership and drew up a constitution. And it was a great day and a lot of enthusiasm. So yeah, that's basically it. If anyone's interested in becoming a member or finding anything more about the society, we should hopefully have some events this summer. So watch this space. But if anyone's interested in membership, you can speak to any of the members that are here. So that's great. Thanks everybody.